It's Turkey Day, so Brandon and I are going to talk about all the things for which we are grateful that relate to the Minnesota Twins. You're invited to listen and watch, but first, you have to get locked on Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Locked On Twins, your daily go-to destination for the top Minnesota Twins insight, discourse, and analysis. Personally, it's my favorite show of the Locked On Podcast Network, which, by the way, brings you your team every day. I'm co-host Dave Brown, a professional ball writer since 1998, a BBWAA member since 2012, and a Baseball Hall of Fame voter since a year ago, and I'm doing it again this December. Please follow me on Twitter at AnswerDaveBrown if you like. You can also find me on Bluesky at AnswerDave. So yay to that. Across from me in cyberspace is Brandon Warren, a Twins watcher for 30 years who not only long ago covered the team on a daily basis professionally, but he covers them today as more of it's a one-sided relationship. He puts a lot into it, and I don't know if the Twins give back. He asks that you elevate the discourse with him on social media at Twitter at Brandon_Warren. And also he's available on Bluesky simply at Warren. He got in early, so that's a good get there when you get your last name on social media. Can you imagine if I was just Brown on Twitter? It'd be like, I mean, that doesn't sound great, but anyway, here's what's coming up.
We know what you're going for.
Here's what's coming up on this podcast. We're going to just be thankful in our own way. So maybe sometimes it won't seem like we're being thankful for things that come to mind when we think of the Twins. So contemporary things, stuff in the past, stuff that isn't there anymore, things that we remember, incidents, great moments, maybe not so great moments, but all the things that come into our head when it comes to being grateful for the Minnesota Twins. Brandon, I know you've got at least one good idea, but can I ask you, is there something about this show that makes it particularly special to you in terms of advertisers?
Oh yeah, you can get started to your season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Almost caught me slipping there, Dave Brown.
I did. Well, I wasn't really trying to, but it's fun though when we don't get our cues. We can make it fun, so it's not the end of the world. So it's okay.
Yeah,
from my standpoint. But so what are we talking about? We're talking about getting locked on Thanksgiving, basically. Why we are thankful. 2024 for the Twins and for memories of the Twins. And we come to you. Let's just say it isn't Thanksgiving when we're recording because we're not crazy. We're not going to be going into the podcast thing on Thanksgiving unless there's some kind of great free agent signing for the Twins. So don't expect it. Don't expect a newser on Thursday.
No.
The first thing that I would like to say is I'm grateful for our fans, even you. No matter the hot takes on Twitter or the unnecessarily overwrought fights with the Cleveland people on Twitter, one of the things about being a baseball writer, it actually has turned me more into a fan of all the teams. And now that I have, for almost a year at this point, pretty soon, been doing the podcast with Brandon, I'm much more alert and into the Twins. I root for them to a certain extent to do well because that's good news. And mostly because it makes the people that interact with us on Twitter happy. And I like to see people happy with their baseball team. It's not, can you imagine like following the White Sox, for example, and the misery that comes inherent with that. And if you're not miserable, you're obviously faking because it is a miserable gall darn situation on the south side of Chicago. The Twins are not a miserable situation, despite their faults. It's a good time to be a Twins fan. It maybe isn't the best time, but it's a good time, and I'm grateful for that.
Isn't the best of times or the worst of times, so we could immediately.
It's just the times.
Yeah, it's just the times. But yeah, I think I was discussing this with my barber, but sometimes Minnesota fans, when things are going at their best, their guarded optimism is like kind of, I don't know, kind of sad. I want people to be able to enjoy the highs and despair the lows. But in general, Minnesota sports fans right now are in a good place. The Wild are one of the better teams in the NHL. The Wolves, coming off a Western Conference Finals berth, Twins in the mix in a tough division, and the Lynx. They were runner up in the WNBA, and who am I missing? That's about it.
How's the Wild doing? Did you mention the Wild?
Yeah,
The Wild?
they lost to Winnipeg, but they're one of the better teams in the West. So it's a good time. Oh, Vikings, yeah, 9-2. Great time to be a Minnesota sports fan, whether they believe it or not. And so I'm thankful for that too.
Almost lost to the Bears, though. I'm sure that was you dragged your emotions around a little bit on Sunday for that. That's
You'd be surprised, actually. It used to be like if it was default football watching Brandon a few years ago, yes. Now I don't know. I've kind of divorced myself from the idea that it's going to dictate anything about my mood, but not to say that that's what you were suggesting. But I don't know. I've been able to distance myself from it to where I also enjoy watching a good game or a competitive game where, like, for instance, 11 points in the final, what was it, 20-some, 30-some seconds? At least it's entertaining. But, yeah, no, I would have been at least annoyed if they had lost. Just not as much as maybe if I was in my late 20s as opposed to my late 30s.
right. My entire mood for the week, at least like on Monday and Tuesday of a week when I was a teenager, would depend on how the Bears did, basically, during football season. So, if they had lost and in particularly upsetting fashion, or a game they shouldn't have, or a big game that I thought maybe they should, it affected my mood. But thankfully I grew out of that, because I can't imagine being so connected to them emotionally now that how I felt would depend on what Matt Eberflus does.
The last fight, no, that's not a good play. I mean, it's what is it? Is it worse than Matt Nagy? Worse than Mark Trestman?
Oh, yeah. It is. It's worse because they actually have a good quarterback
and people for him to throw to,
not necessarily an offensive line
to
protect him, or good people calling the plays, but tiny steps, baby steps for the Bears.
The last Vikings game that I allowed myself to live and die with was the Brett Favre pick across his body to Tracy Porter for the trip to the Super Bowl that the Saints ended up winning. That was like, it wasn't my 1998 because I was 12 when that happened, and you really do live and die with sports when you're 12 going on 13. But at 23, I was just kind of like, you know what? We don't have to do this anymore. I still enjoy it. I still watch it. I'm still a big fan. But the live and die died that day.
That said, I still, like I said, I appreciate baseball more than I used to. I think, not that I didn't appreciate it before, I appreciate it differently than I did. There's I go through, I like to see teams through the eyes of their fans, and that's it's an interesting viewpoint from the Twins fans. There's an earnest, not optimism, but enthusiasm about the team, but also a lingering dread and concern that they're never going to win again, which is funny because I'm old enough to remember 87 and 91 when they won the World Series twice in 4 years. And it's nothing that was sustainable. And, if my team had won 30 years ago, I think by this point I would be running out of inertia. So I understand the pining for the glory days, or for what's coming, as long as that's good. So the Twins fans have a kind of a unique look on the world. So that's fun for me. But, and speaking of, you said what is something that we enjoy, a good game, like the Bears Vikings. 10 points in 90 seconds or whatever it was. We enjoy watching good Twins games too.
Yes.
And I think there's a chance that it'll be easier to do that in 2025 because there's no more diamond baseball Bally Sports thing. Now, that might mean some changes for the broadcast that people are going to have to get used to. People not being there anymore on the side or whatever. But I look forward to this operation that Twins are using with Major League Baseball to bring their team to the fans digitally. I'd like to think that next year we're going to have many fewer complaints about the app not working or blackouts or not being no carriage. Hopefully it's all good, right? It's all going to be good, right, Brandon? No more of that stuff, right?
One thing I wonder about too is like, how will the score bug change, or like some of the because I feel like some of that stuff got a little stale. I mean, part of it is anybody who was Fox Sports North, Bally Sports North, whatever, Bally Sports, Fox Sports, whatever, they kind of have like that prepackaged and
right.
I would like to see that change a little bit, and it's going to. So I'll be eager to see how the broadcast adjusts, because there were things I thought had gotten kind of stale. And, for the visiting team to have a better view of Joan Duran's super cool entrance was discouraging, to say the least. You see Edwin Diaz and SNY getting his, I can't remember the name of the musician, but his, the trumpets and everything. Timmy Trumpet, yeah. The Twins should have that level of like visual appeal with Joan Duran's entrance, and it just felt like they kind of fell short there. So I'll be curious to see, and I will be grateful. I will be thankful for whatever changes are made, even if it takes a little while, not only to get used to, but maybe even for them to find their niche or their groove.
Yeah, it's hopefully the changes in that area will be positive, and the score bug will make it easier to watch the game and understand what the score is and the situation, because that's one of those things where be careful what you wish for, because a change there could lead to a less pleasurable way of watching the game, or making it harder. So hopefully they'll get this right, and hopefully the partnership with Major League Baseball and the other teams means there's a few different brains working on this, and they'll come up with good ideas and not bad ones. So I'm going to knock on wood and hope that your score bug is better in 2025. Speaking of aesthetics, there are a few places in the major leagues better to watch games than Target Field. I have not been to every field, and there have been a few new stadiums come along in the last couple of years, and I haven't had a chance to go, but I've seen a lot of them, and I've seen most of the ones that people call the best. Places like San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Seattle. I've been to those, and I wouldn't necessarily rank Target Field first, but if you think Target Field is the best field and you've been to all those other places, that is certainly a reasonable thing to think. It is a very nice place to watch a game, and you got that going for you. And also, there's a reasonable lease that has got 14 or 15 years left, so the Twins are not about to leave. It's a nice, for all the shtick of the Metrodome, which was just a bizarre stadium that we'll talk about later a little bit. I'm still grateful for those memories of the Metrodome, but the Target Field is a great place to, it's a great base from which to build up your product, if you want to talk about the baseball team in those terms.
It was a dump, but it was our dump. And I think too, like the whole old joke, like if you surround yourself with ugly friends, you look better in comparison. That's another thing that Target Field has it going for it, is that it's a low bar to clear. Like Caleb Williams crossing the single season record for passing yards for a rookie Bears quarterback. And everyone's like, yeah, well, the bar was underground. Yes, that certainly does give Target Field a leg up, but it's a wonderful venue. And not only did it begin as a wonderful one, but the aesthetic and whatever else upgrades that have been made along the way have kept it from becoming a relic or a period specific capsule of that time. It's not 2010 cool. It's still progressing with the times. And I think you either have to stick with your like traditional, like scoreboard and Fenway, or you have to commit to one or the other. And since it was built recently, you can't really commit to old style. So you kind of have to keep up with it. I think they've done a nice job keeping it modern without getting too kitschy, without getting too commercialized. Again, all that's relative. But yeah, Twins fans are blessed with one of the very best places in the major leagues to watch a ball game, whether you think it's the first number one overall stadium, top 3, top 5. I don't think there's anybody with a good opinion out there who says it's below, top 10. And I think that top 10 would be, it's top 10, but not 7, 8, 9, or, when someone says, yeah, they're the top 3 and they're not third, if the Twins are in the top 10, it's not back of the top 10 for Target Field. I think it's a wonderful venue and a wonderful place, probably not only to watch a game, but to play a game, I would imagine, as well.
Before we break, an underrated detail of Target Field that I love, and you probably can guess what I'm thinking of. If you go there and it's a windy day and you look out to right center field, you see the parking deck. And the parking deck is covered in this, I call it a chainmail sheath. And it's almost like watching a lake, the waves, the wind bounce off the lake. And it's kind of hypnotic. So if you baseball games, they don't last as long as they used to. Sometimes they're not 3 hours anymore, but there can be dead spots. You can just find yourself wandering your eyes to the parking deck and seeing the chainmail sheath just sort of waft in the breeze. It's not going to fly away. It's nailed down pretty tight, but it's just it's a nice little, it's not electronic, but it's it's animated. Mm-hmm. It's just I don't know if it's an accident or has anybody ever been interviewed like who designed that? That'd be a good story.
It looks like the thing that Scott Steiner used to wear on his head in pro wrestling, like in 2000. And if you don't know what that is, I would highly recommend looking it up, because once you do that, you'll be like, I've seen that before.
I like that you can connect those pro wrestling dots, Brandon. It wouldn't be a baseball podcast if there wasn't some pro wrestling. On that note, speaking of connecting the dots, let's connect ourselves to our sponsor.
Sorry if I cut you off there, Dave, but I was so excited to tell people about FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that $5 bet hits. The FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need on that app to place live bets, all in the same place it's an app that gives you everything you need to place live bets in one place. But also, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. It's basically like having the red zone in your back pocket. Visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet hits. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
We are talking about why we are thankful at Locked On Twins about the Twins and things related to the Twins. Brandon, I thought you had a good idea in show prep about what you are thankful for as far as the current state of competition in the AL Central.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of maybe undersold it, but I said I'm glad that none of the other teams in the division are particularly good still. And you said, well, 3 teams made the playoffs. And so reconsidering or reconfiguring that, I'm thankful that the AL does not have a team that's going to run away with it. The team that just represented the AL in the World Series, the New York Yankees, is one. It has flaws. The team has flaws, obvious flaws. 2, there's at least a reasonable chance that they will not get back Juan Soto. They'll most likely lose Gleyber Torres and whoever else. I mean, there is not a runaway freight train AL team. The Astros may get weaker with Alex Bregman gone. Everybody signing with the Angels, who knows if that's going to matter at all. I mean, at this point, the AL is such a wide open pick 'em that even if the Twins have another half-baked offseason like we think they will, it isn't cause for immediate existential despair. Now, that is faint with damning praise, or faint praise with what I don't know what the phrase is. I never remember because I always screwed up but it's damning with faint praise. Maybe that's what it is. But with that said, if the Twins run it back with largely the same cast of characters, you could reasonably say, well, maybe it'll be different this time, and it's not just praying against hope.
If there is a runaway freight train in the American League, I believe it is run over the White Sox. So
yes,
that's good for the AL Central. The Twins don't have to worry about that probably for 2025. What if Alex Bregman signs with the Tigers, though? Or that's something I've heard. That could be.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the Tigers have the makings of a good team, but I also think they had a lot of things go their favor this year that even your odd year kind of thing where maybe you don't get as many big hits from Kerry Carpenter or who was the guy? They had a guy who picked up the big hit against Houston, the lefty mashing. Is it Harold Castro?
What year are you talking about?
No, I'm thinking of who am I thinking of? The right-handed hitter who smacked that double against the Astros, hits lefties, but had just a huge moment there in the playoffs. Not Harold Castro. That's a long time ago.
You threw me there with Harold.
No, they had I'm going to pull it up here because it's going to bother me until I figure out who it was.
It bothers me, I'll tell you that.
But it wasn't Wenzel Perez, was it?
Wenzel Perez, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, he had a 683 OPS, and he's getting big hits. Like, when we watch the playoffs, this is their offense. OPS plus 71, 89, 96, 41, 79, 133, 108, 93, 84 on the I was looking up our bat plus. They're a little bit different for OPS plus, but in the general same vein. Kerry Carpenter, obviously off the bench, pretty good. Matt Vierling off the bench, pretty good. But like, this is not a team that you should be afraid of. It's a good baseball team, but they had a 94 OPS plus, and an ERA plus of 113. Like, that's a good ball club, but it's not someone that you have to be like, oh, we can't compete with that team. There's just no reason to believe that.
And we're still expecting regression on the Guardians for 2024. So yeah. I would expect that that'll happen again in 2025. But
obviously.
And I'm not sure if the Jonathan India trade makes the Royals better. I think it makes them better, but I'm still not sure that I like the trade for them that much. I think they could have gotten a better player. And I really like Jonathan India, like talking to him. And he's a decent guy, but I don't know.
It does give them something they didn't have in terms of like plate discipline. Like that,
yes,
that is something, but it also takes away something that they had. They had a nice starting rotation coming together, and some of that rotation is older guys that may or may not repeat next year.
True, we want Michael. They're asking Michael Wacha to do that again, and we'll see.
Or Seth Lugo, it's good. Yeah. Those are perfectly solid pitchers. But like a year ago, if you would have told me that they'd both pitched like 4 or 5 starters, like that would not have even made me raise a single eyebrow.
Right. So there's that. What else is there? So we're talking about what we're grateful for the Twins. Players like Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Byron Buxton, Carlos Correa, Ryan Jeffers, Christian Vasquez, Royce Lewis. My little note here says fun to talk to and just to watch. Guys that are easy to root for, and you hope you do well, and it's a likable team, and there aren't there's nobody that I can think of off the top of my head that I don't like, and that's not necessarily true with other years. Rather than rehash other personal failings of former Twins, it's a good group, it's a good bunch. I think that stems from acquiring them first of all, because they're just good dudes or pretty good guys, and what Rocco and the coaching staff set out. Rocco's on this list too of things to be thankful for. Sorry, And I just think that makes it easier to be a fan, to root for these guys and their little quirks and their fun little senses of humor. And it's I like that.
It reminds me of the old Kyle Mooney bit. Oh, the great group of guys. If you haven't seen Ball Champions and you're listening to this on YouTube, look it up. Kyle Mooney ended up being on Saturday Night Live, but he did a thing where he went to a Giants game and cosplayed as a reporter fan / goofball. And have you watched it, Dave?
I've not seen that. I'm thinking of Bill Murray.
Gosh,
on SNL with Chico Escuela, but that's a different memory.
We'll watch it on Slack. Like we'll both hit play at the same time because I want to watch your reactions.
Okay.
And anyway, hilarious and a great group of guys. That's what I think of with the Twins. And yeah, I again, like you name all those names, and it's like, how does a team with that much talent barely finish over 500? Like that has been maybe the most frustrating thing of the Twins Falvey era is like they build really good rosters, and for some reason or another, they can't get out of their own way. And I don't really understand that because like pound for pound, talent for talent, if you're going to tell me someone was more talented than the Minnesota Twins this last year, I'm going to flat out disagree.
I agree with that. And you know, it makes me sort of wonder what is the coaching staff missing something? I don't know.
It's asinine that a team with Royce Lewis, Byron Buxton, and Carlos Correa, even with time missed, barely finished 500. Like, they have a bad rotation. They must, they have 3 very good starters, 4 solid starters. I mean, like, it makes no sense. Good back into the bullpen. They, for the most part, catch the ball. And it's just like, they're missing something. What is it? I don't know. This is a damn fine baseball team talent-wise.
They weren't really missing it 2 years ago. They beat the Yankees in the season series. They went to the playoffs. They won a series in the playoffs. They were competitive for a few innings against the Astros.
The difference wasn't Sonny Gray. Like, the difference wasn't having one more good starting pitcher. Sonny Gray didn't cause them to lose 10 more games or whatever it was.
So I think we can say we're thankful that they are close to where they need to be to win games.
They're competitive. Yeah, they're a perfectly fine baseball team as presently constructed, which is rare to say at Thanksgiving.
We are celebrating Thanksgiving and what it means to be thankful for the Twins. Did you have any other ones? I've got a whole list here of things that I can just run through. It's kind of goofy, some of the stuff, but
honestly, no. I guess for me, it's just the stability of the organization because there are other teams that don't know what they're watching or rooting for on a given day, whether it's the manager's getting fired or a player's gonna do something off the field to get in trouble. Like the Twins have been one of the more stable organizations, and for that, I don't mind. Stable is boring, but guess what? Boring is the older you get, the more you value boring.
So just here's a list of a few things I was brainstorming or whatever you call it. Memories of the Metrodome. We mentioned Target Field earlier. Memories of the Metrodome where there was no smoking, but there was a giant milk and a huge baggie, and you get blown every time you exited the ballpark.
I caught a home run there.
Did you? You caught it in the air?
And Todd Callis interviewed me about it.
Oh, that's all. We should find. Can we find that tape? Is that?
Nope. I looked and looked and looked, but Sun Sports or whatever did not have the records of it.
Maybe we could have Todd Callis on the show and he could recreate the interview with you.
I threw the home run back, and the girl next to me was a Rays fan and tried to jump on me to keep me from throwing it, and it didn't work. Ty Wigginton, man.
I hate that.
I know, but I was also 22 years old at the time.
I guess there's an excuse for everything.
Maybe 20. I think I was 20.
I'm also thankful for mental images of Joe Mauer rapping.
Yep.
I always wanted to hear what his rapping would be like, and he wouldn't tell anybody. He didn't really like that got out there, that he had a studio in his house where he spit rhymes. Burt Blyleven saying that he loved farting. Blyleven wore a shirt once or more than once that said, "I heart to fart." And I asked him about it in an interview, and we had several questions about farting. And I don't remember much more about the details on that, but it's funny that Burt Blyleven,
there was no denial. There was no plausible denial.
No, there was no denial. It was an embrace. He wasn't running from himself.
No.
I love Kent Herbeck growing up in Bloomington and becoming a 2-time World Series winner for his hometown team. That's amazing.
Love it.
Not to mention he's also the Ron Gant powerlifting champion. I love that Harmon Killebrew was like a grandpa who was in the Hall of Fame. I got to talk to him once. It was before a series against the Yankees in the playoffs in 2010 or whatever that was. And great. I mean, he was like he was in the David Letterman interview when they devoted an entire show to him once. It was just
true or false, Jim Thome is the modern day Harmon Killebrew.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking Jim Thome was a twin. Let's say that.
Yeah, he was. Metropolitan Stadium, going back even one more ballpark, it's still there. Even if it's just a single seat and you have to find it among the roller coaster tracks inside the largest mall in North America, it's there. The stadium is still there. I love that too. Tony Oliva, being a great player and enduring knee injuries and a long wait to make it into the Hall of Fame, all the while being the perfect ambassador for the team. And you sent me a note, and it says,
I said, don't worry about cutting it at 32 minutes. My favorite Tony Oliva story is that when I was a kid, my stepdad sent me down the Metrodome had a ticketing area that you had to go down to get to on the Kirby Puckett Place side of things. And he sent me down there to get tickets. It was the day I was moving into college in 2004, and they were playing the Royals. And I stood down there for tickets for like probably 15 minutes. And I came back up and they go, do you know who you were standing next to? Because my brother was in a wheelchair and he couldn't go down there. So they stayed up and just watched. I stood next to Tony Oliva in line for 15 minutes and didn't even know it. And I was 18 years old. I had never met him before. I mean, now, I've spoken to him and whatever through work, but me being completely oblivious. Oh, by the way, Tony Oliva's here. And now I've, peed next
why
to
were
him.
the Twins making Tony Oliva stand in line?
I have no idea.
With those knees?
Right.
Anyway, well, that's it. I've run through my list.
Oh, I thought you had a longer list than that.
I did. Well, it seemed longer when I was thinking of it, but I went through all the things. So I'm done.
Oh yeah, no, I guess I didn't think about. Yeah, that chainmail sheath. When MLB The Show first, sorry, I was looking back at your list. When MLB The Show first came out in a year that had Target Field, they added that, and it actually like whips in the wind, and it's a very accurate representation. I think though, it's one very cool, but it's also got kind of like a grouchy / miserly connotation where they don't want people watching the game from the ramp.
Oh, really? It's like to cover the knot hole?
It wouldn't shock me, right?
That's a very cynical way to look at things, Brandon. This is Thanksgiving.
Well, I'm thankful that I can share my opinions in an open platform like this.
All right. Well, that is going to do it for this Thanksgiving episode of Locked On Twins. Why we are thankful, 2024. For my friend Brandon Warren, this is Dave Brown saying we wish you all a very pleasant good evening and happy Thanksgiving. And we will Casilla
tomorrow
night.
Casilla
night.
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow.